Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? It's your boy Iggy for another fantastic episode of Iggy's Loudmouth podcast. And this has been a nice little run of the sit downs and the YouTube series I got going. Just started this month. I appreciate everybody that subscribed and following so far. And this is, I guess, technically episode 3. Technically, but I've done 4 episodes. Uh, but on this episode, this was going to be an interesting one, a very good one actually. I don't really talk about religion or my spirituality that much. I've talked about it a little bit on the podcast in the past, especially when it comes to like mental health. But I don't really speak about my background in religion that much. So this is gonna be a good opportunity to talk about that and speak to some of the ties with our black community as far as religion goes. And more. We'll talk about everything. I mean, tomorrow is Mental Health Monday, so I'll probably touch on that a little bit too. So, anyways, I'll let my guest introduce herself, and then we'll get it going.
Right. Well, hello. Thank you so much for allowing me to share your platform with you.
Of course, yes, ma'am.
I'm excited about the conversation that we have planned for today. But my name is Leanne Jones. I am 32, almost 33 years of age. I'm born and raised from the city of Chattanooga. I have been in the church culture for almost 32 years. I am currently in school receiving my degree in psychology, and I am currently obtaining my certificate to be a parenting coach. So there's a lot of overlap with that. I have done a lot of work in the nonprofit sector and doing a lot of work in helping our community. I also ran for city council, and we're prepping to run again. So have a lot of good things going on.
Man, light on the plate. Sounds like.
Yeah, we stay busy.
Yeah, you're right about that.
Stay busy.
You're absolutely right about that. So, you said you're from Chattanooga, and you've been in the church culture your entire life, pretty
Mm-hmm.
much.
Yeah.
What would you say? How well? I guess introduction to the church. What would you say that was like initially? You know what I mean?
Well, there was really no sort of introduction
Yeah.
because when my mom and my dad married, he was the chairman of the deacon board at the church that he served
So
at.
he was.
So
Yeah,
I always like to tell people I was born in church
yeah,
because when they got married, all of that good stuff, and when I was born, they were still in church.
yeah, yeah,
So he had always been in the capacity of church leadership
yeah.
my whole entire life.
Do you feel like there was like any pressures as a kid
A lot.
in that?
A lot.
Yeah,
Not necessarily to be in church leadership,
yeah,
but more so my parents held me to a high
yeah. I
standard.
was about to say like behavioral or like you know what I
Yeah.
mean, like people in the church kind of like looking at you. You know what I
Oh,
mean? You
always.
know, you got the spotlight on you a little bit.
Always. And it was a lot of times where when my dad finally did become senior pastor, I was 7 years old.
Yeah,
So there were situations that occurred within the church where if something happened and the other person would have been wrong, I would have still been the one to take the blame for it
yeah, yeah,
because you got this and we got to make sure we're handling this way, so
yeah,
you got to make sure you're, and it's like, but they were the one that was wrong,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
So it was a lot of pressure in regards to upholding a standard for an image that
At 7,
well, at
that's
seven,
crazy.
at 7, 8, 9, 10, a standard that I feel like was self-inflicted.
Mm.
Because growing up and the older I get, the more I realize these people really didn't care.
Nah, it's about image.
It's about image,
Yeah,
and it was never, I'll never forget, this was my first crush, right?
yeah.
I was about 9 years old. I went to Barger Elementary.
Okay,
And
okay.
so we went to the same school together, same church together. And my school had a little dance.
Yeah.
So we went to the dance, had fun. And the next day we talked on the phone for a little bit. And he told me, my mama said that I can't talk to you because why would you want to talk to that pastor's daughter? And I'm
Wow.
like,
At 9.
at 9.
That's crazy.
So
What's the stigma behind a pastor's daughter that she wouldn't want her son
I have no idea.
talk to you.
I never even asked the question, but it did bother me. And my
Yeah,
parents didn't necessarily know how to handle it because they had known them. We were raised up as
yeah,
friends.
yeah,
And so it was like when it got to that point to where we were getting to be closer than
yeah,
just friends, it was like, no, I don't want you messing with that pastor's daughter,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But a lot of times I don't think people realize what that does to the child,
Absolutely. That's why I asked you that because I
you
mean, I
know.
think we all have our obviously. I've talked about child traumas on here a lot,
Hmm.
but in that situation, there's a little bit of like a little extra when it's religion or like when it's in church. And that's a
Hmm.
child trauma because it's attached to God. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's kind of like a little deeper
It
in a way. You
is.
get what I'm
When
saying?
the reality was, I didn't do anything to hurt her
Mm-hmm.
son. I didn't do anything to make them think that I was just this terrible, bad child. I was a child. We were children,
Yeah, I
right?
mean,
But the reality was, it was more so, oh, well, you, my son. We have to realize and take into account the mother son dynamic,
yeah, absolutely.
which we sometimes don't like to go into,
Yeah,
but it was more so what I think you are so much more than that girl that everybody always talks about.
yeah,
So I refuse to allow you to talk to her
yeah,
because people are already watching her. So I
yeah.
need to protect you
From that,
from that, you know. And a lot of these things have begun to be dissected for me in
hmm
therapy because a lot of everything that took place when it came to childhood trauma and the experiences that I went through in church, I internalized all of them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, how could you have not? You're
And
7, 9. I mean, there's no way to really express that.
exactly. And what a lot of people don't realize is there is a really huge age gap between me and my parents.
Yeah. Yeah.
Both of my parents are baby boomers,
Oh yeah.
and
And
I'm a
you're 32.
millennial.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of gap in.
Absolutely. And even in just the mechanism and like culture of church
Mhm.
amongst that generational gap. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like I see that. My uncle's a pastor at First Baptist.
Okay.
William Terry Ladd.
Yeah.
That's my uncle.
Okay.
That's Uncle Terry. Yeah. Shout out to Uncle Terry. What's up? Uh, yeah. So like and his First Baptist is an older.
It
It's an
is. It's a
older.
historically back.
Yeah, historically black church here is like it's pretty much
To
it
put a
can't be
pin in
touched.
that, a lot of people don't know that that used to be the First Baptist Church of Chattanooga before it turned into the First Baptist Church
Yeah,
East 8th Street.
yeah,
And when Martin Luther King,
yeah,
before he moved to Atlanta, was due to be the
yeah.
pastor of
He
that
was coming.
church.
Yeah,
But there were a lot of influential black preachers
that
in
didn't
that
want.
time. They did everything
Yeah,
that they could to keep him
yeah.
from.
My uncle told me about that.
Yeah,
When
a lot of
which is
black people.
crazy.
They
Yes,
don't want to acknowledge it because I was talking to a group of
it was.
older.
I mean, there's a lot of black people that didn't like Martin Luther King. It's
Hmm.
yeah. Yeah, it's funny how as we know, history changes in time.
It does
But yeah, a lot of black people did not like Martin Luther King back
because he
then.
came to shake up the system
Yeah, he shook
to
up.
cause things to be disrupted
Yeah,
just for the basis of people to be seen for who they were.
yeah.
They didn't like that.
I just think anybody that's coming to shake up things is going to cause issue, and maybe do polarizing things.
Always.
If you're not used to that, if you're not open to that, and then also Martin Luther King at the time, I don't know if his tactics were as accepted by black people until they started seeing them work. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Because uh, his ideas weren't coming from our community. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like they were coming from like a more international worldview, and the idea of being nonviolent, kind of getting your ass whooped on TV and not fighting back. Most black people not really gonna be for that shit
Right.
until it starts working. You know what I'm saying? And then it starts working, and then that's where you go.
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
anyways, I ain't gonna get
No, you good. You good. You good.
into.
It's all a part of the greater story. So it
Absolutely,
worked.
absolutely, absolutely. So, um, all right. So we'll get into some of the church hurt we were gonna talk about since we kind of got into that a little bit already. I will ask you this, and this is something that I kind of gather from, or I want to ask at least. It's kind of a new question as far as like now that I know you've been in the church for so long, and you recognize your traumas that you come from. What made you continue to want to be a part of the community for one, and then also kind of like maybe change how it's viewed in another way? You know what I'm saying? Because I think a lot of times, um, you know, children that grow up in the church, maybe especially if you have that kind of pressure as far as like a senior pastor or your parents are in church leadership, that kind of pushes them out of the church. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, all right, you see the politics, you see the judgmental, you get, you know what I mean? You see all of that, and it's just like, that doesn't feel right. You know what I mean? It doesn't feel right within God, so it pushes you away out of church. What made you kind of go away from that? You know what I mean? And come back to the church, and not only that, but also be like, try to influence it.
So one thing that I've had to reconcile is that it's all about the particular person.
Yeah.
And me as a particular person, I know that it is my mission and my purpose to change the narrative because I have spent the entirety of my life seeing firsthand how things go down in church, seeing firsthand how things are managed or handled, all of that. I had a front row seat to it all. So, me being the person that I am and me being who God has called me to be, I know that that's what I'm here to do, is to change the narrative. I know a plethora of pastors' kids all over the state, all over the country. They said, I refuse to follow in my father's
I got
footsteps.
a homie that's a pastor's son. He can't
He
stand his
ain't
dad.
going.
Yeah.
And he ain't going,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
And I do not blame them at all.
yeah, yeah.
But because I understand my calling and what I'm here to do, I believe that the church is beneficial. But in order for it to be beneficial, we first got to begin to start with how we portray God
Absolutely.
and how we look at Him
Yeah, yeah,
and how we bear the name of God.
yeah.
A lot of people will say, "Oh, well, that commandment says you shouldn't say the Lord's name in vain." That's not what that commandment is saying.
Mm-hmm.
It says, "Thou shalt not bear the name of the Lord in vain." It means
Mm-hmm.
to wear,
Mm-hmm.
to project,
Mm-hmm.
to show off. So you have that responsibility to,
Mm-hmm.
in the community that you work in, you're saying, I am a representative of God, but yet you're misrepresenting Him.
So that's more what it means.
Right.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's not, oh, well, I'm leaving the church. I'm done with the church. I'm through with the church. I'm over the church. No, I'm here to change it.
Yeah, yeah,
A lot of times people don't realize, even with Jesus, his example came because he learned of the ways that the church did
yeah.
when he
Mm-hmm.
was younger.
Mm-hmm.
And when he got older, he knew what his mission was. And it's to let people know, hey, what these religious folk telling y'all, that's far from the truth. I'm here to help you understand it better. And that's kind of how I view my mission. Because there are so many people that suffer from church hurt.
Yeah, absolutely.
My church hurt is a whole lot different because my church hurt comes from the internal aspect. Other people may not have been as close to. Their church hurt could be, oh, well, somebody in the church mishandled me, or somebody in the church said something that hurt my feelings. Not to invalidate that, because you have every reason to feel that way. But my church hurt hit different. A
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
pastors' kids' church hurt hits different
Absolutely, absolutely.
because we can be hurt on a Sunday morning and still be made to go to church that next
Yeah,
day.
there's no way you miss the
You
church.
see what I mean?
Not only you not miss the church, you got to go to church on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes on the weekend, depending on what what's going on. You know
Yep.
what I mean? Like throughout the week, my uncle, he's there. Obviously, that's his job, but they do stuff throughout the week. You know what I mean?
Because they're a staple in the community.
So like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a lot to deal with. Now his son, my cousin, is a grown man. Now he's older, but I can just imagine at that time, you know what I mean? Like the stuff he would have to follow him, or maybe have to get somebody to watch him while he is doing it, or most of the time you are there. You know what I mean? Like you're there and just having to be still, be quiet, do work,
Right.
do homework.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think church hurt, and not even just to downplay, you know, hurting your feelings. That happens anywhere. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Not saying that is invalidated, but that happens anywhere. I speak when I say church hurt. It comes from like the expectations, even outside of like being a a preacher's son or daughter because there are people that go to church every Sunday. In our community, most of us are either at church, right? And that's 12 o'clock. So most of us are at church right now. So at least in the South, you know what I'm saying? So like,
Mhm.
and that includes the kids. That includes, you know what I mean? So everybody's going. And there's expectation that come with that. For me personally, I always had a problem with people going to church and acting one way, and then throughout the week, they acting another way.
Of course.
I've always had a problem with that,
Mhm.
and I think that shows up so bad in the black community and the black churches. Not not to say nobody's perfect, and I'm not judging, but if I'm 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 really bad about like I don't like two faced. I don't like people that act a certain way and are different another way, and that's probably I don't know if that's sourced in that, but it's one of the reasons why I don't like it because you know, I'm supposed to expect it to act a certain way on a Sunday. Like, what's the difference between this Sunday and then tomorrow Monday? Those are both days God created. Just
There's
this
no
days,
difference.
yeah, this day is just used to worship according to our religion. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? You could really worship
Any
any day you
day.
choose. Sunday, Monday,
Absolutely.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That's really based off of like historical calendar.
Mhm.
It's not really based. You know what I mean? So like we get deep about that. But anyways, like
Yeah.
the days that you pick are the days that you pick, right? So there's no difference between the Sunday and Monday. But if I go to church on Sunday and you acting holier than thou, you acting like I ain't see you last night at the club, you know what I'm saying? Not to say you can't act a certain way, but don't act like that. And then the next time I see you, you know it's a totally different
And
phase.
here's one of the things that I've come to understand about that. It's because as a culture, as a people, we can't talk about other cultures and other people because that's not our experience,
Of course, yeah.
right? But one thing I've learned is religion for so long for us has been used as a means of control,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
right? And so because it has been perpetuated generation after generation, we don't know how to break that cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Scripture even tells us that God did not give us a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and a sound mind. That power does not speak to, oh, well, I'm here to tell you what to do, how to do it, and when to do it. That power is for you to be aware of your actions and take accountability for what you do
Yeah.
and what other people do. Let them reconcile that with God and move on,
Yeah.
right? But we don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
And that comes from people not having the ability to manage their own life in a sound way.
Yeah.
You know, um, talking about psychology, it is imperative that people really take the time to understand their emotions because in order to have a spiritually mature walk, you have to know how to acknowledge your emotions.
Yeah.
It's not to hold on to it, but acknowledge them, allow them to move through you and move on.
Yeah.
But we don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
Even with my parents, a lot of the times I've had to learn how to just be okay with them not acknowledging how I felt about certain things because there's a certain aspect of them that they just won't understand. For the longest time, I tried to force them to understand, but I could not because they did not have the capacity.
Yeah.
And it's not to fault them, but it's my responsibility now to work through that. And everybody that comes after me or the people that I talk to, I'm here to help you understand that so
Yeah.
we can begin to break that cycle.
Yeah.
But that's what it boils down to, in my opinion.
Do you feel like, and I won't say I've dealt with a lot of cultures, but my ex-wife's Italian, so when I was dating her, we went to Catholic church in Germany, and that actually opened me up to church. And when I was in Europe, it totally changed my whole perspective about church, religion, and all that, because it's just a lot different over there. um, but I will say, like, I think different cultures handle religions differently.
Very differently.
And I think that's pretty obvious. I mean, we make jokes about going to black church versus white church. We see the memes and stuff like that. So it's pretty obvious. Even like even Latin churches, like it's run differently, and that comes with different expectations, and that comes with different like outlooks. Do you think that our community, when it comes to church, is more fear based and controlled than
Absolutely,
other than
positively.
other than other cultures when it comes to
Absolutely.
yeah. Well, why? And I'll let. I mean, I have my reasons why. Why you think?
Well, like I stated a minute ago, this all stems back from slavery.
Yeah.
Understanding that when they came over to the Western world and did what they did over here in the Americas,
Mm-hmm.
it started that far back.
Mm-hmm.
And what I don't think people realize is I can't remember who exactly was in war with Haiti.
Mm-hmm.
But when
Oh yeah, yeah,
you
yeah. You know
remember,
your history.
yeah,
I remember.
when
Yeah.
the women sat there and prayed and burned their incense and did what they
Mm-hmm.
did, it was only a few Haitian men that fought that war, but they won and they
Mm-hmm.
gained their independence.
Mm-hmm.
And so these people said, well, we can't allow that to happen anywhere else.
Yeah.
So, how are we going to keep these people from utilizing the tactics and the tools and the methods that they have been using for years
Mm-hmm.
so that way we can control them? And and hence that's where slavery was born.
Yeah.
So it dates back centuries.
Yeah.
Um, I do believe that religion is used in a fear mongering type of way because we do not fully have an understanding of ourselves.
Yeah. Okay.
We don't know where we come from. We don't know who we are, nor do we know what we are here to do.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it gets misconstrued in Sunday morning preaching.
Mm-hmm.
It gets misinterpreted in Sunday morning preaching. And sometimes we allow Sunday morning preaching to be the it and the all.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we don't realize is that's why it's important for preachers to do their due diligence, do their homework.
Absolutely.
Don't just open up the book and teach from the book. No, do your research.
Yeah.
Understand the language and the time in which it was written,
Mm-hmm.
and how does that correlate or relate to today.
Yeah.
But because we look at the scripture and we use it so literally, a
Yeah.
majority of the scripture
Absolutely. I'm glad you said that.
is not to be used
That's
literally.
my biggest argument. Like,
Yeah, it's metaphorical.
yeah,
Even Jesus himself spoke in parables. What
yeah,
was the
yeah. Most of his speeches were in parables.
exactly,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
what was the purpose of him speaking in these parables?
yeah.
Like, and this is why it
And
bothers
even
me.
like the stories in the Old Testament, those are metaphorically. You know what I mean? Like they're
Very
not meant to be taken
metaphorical.
literal. I have that argument all the time with my family, and you know what I mean. Like, you know, and I think I'll just say I can understand why that's such a hard argument
Right.
to you know, because I mean when you're taught a certain way, and then also we're taught to read things like that. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And when it's taught that this is the God's book and you got to follow this stuff, you're gonna take it literally. But yeah, I've always had that argument. I'm glad you said that. Thank you for saying that.
Absolutely. And a lot of people don't realize that there were words in the present day King James version of the Bible that we read that were not there
Oh,
initially.
King James is probably one of the worst verses to read.
One of the
It's
worst.
completely manipulated to control.
Right.
That's what it was there for.
But it's hard to get a lot of us and a lot of our parents and grandparents to understand that
Yeah.
this version of the Bible is not
It's
what
fear based.
it
Yeah. It's
is.
meant to. It's written that way.
And we have taken these constructs like race, sexuality into consideration as to how we perpetuate that fear.
Mm-hmm.
Even when you look at the word homosexuality, it has nothing to do with same sex.
Mm-hmm.
The initial word homosexuality means sexual perversion.
Mm-hmm.
It means sexual immorality. Like sleeping with children is
Mm-hmm.
sexual perversion.
Mm-hmm.
That's homosexuality. It has nothing to do with gender.
Mm-hmm.
But let a preacher tell you, oh no, you got to, God
Yeah.
made Adam and Eve,
Yeah.
not Adam and Steve, right? And so
I wonder how many preachers that said that on the pulpit.
wait, no. I was in a service about 3 months ago, and there was a preacher that said that my whole entire being shook.
Man, that's hilarious.
It
I'm
shook.
sure that's like they probably got like a group text, and that's like that's, that's That's like the one. That's like the same. Like that's like the same speech they share to each other. Oh yeah, this one hit. This one hit. This one hit the. This
And
one hit
it's
the
like, but it's
congregation.
not. But it's not. But it's not. It's not. And mind you, I don't want people to feel shame
Yeah,
because they don't know.
yeah.
You don't know something that you don't know.
Obviously not. Yeah, for sure.
But
You gotta
if
learn.
you're willing to learn and if you're willing to do away with the things that were taught to you incorrectly, you have the ability to grow.
Yeah,
But if you ain't trying to learn, there ain't nothing I can do to help you, Blair.
absolutely.
Nothing at
Yeah, you
all.
gotta try to put in the work to learn.
And the idea for us is to continue to have that mindset to always want to learn and grow because that's the only way that we're going to be able to break out of this level of control that has been forced upon us for years. But it's hard when you got people that are just hell bent on holding on to what they holding on. I get
Yeah,
it because that's what you knew growing up.
yeah.
That's what has led your life for so long.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Iggy. Y'all tuned into Iggy's Loudmouth podcast right now. Make sure you subscribe, like, comment, share. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you want to see next week. I'll see y'all next week. Peace.
Yo, yo, yo! Welcome back. Back in Iggy's Loud Mouth podcast. We just had a good start to the conversation. We're gonna step back into it with Leanne here and continue talking about Christianity, religion, and the black community. Um, so I know we kind of spoke about like the traumas
Yeah.
that come with that, but I think there's some benefits also.
Of course.
And I think we see them as far as a community aspect pretty consistently within the
Mhm.
church and black community. What would you say like the biggest strengths you would say, like your perspective, the biggest strengths and then also maybe the biggest damages that Christianity has done to the black
Right.
community?
In my personal opinion, I'll start with the damages first.
Okay.
Because in my opinion, the damages are few, but um they do more damage,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's not a lot of damages or it's not a lot of downfall, but the effect on people that it has lifelong effect, right? But the damages or the downfalls, in my opinion, is how church people treat other people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
People sometimes seem to forget the minute that they accept Christ as their savior, they seem to forget where they come from or the things that they have done in their past, right? And so they try to perpetuate that off onto other people by telling them, oh, well, if I can accept Jesus and I can change and I can this, then you can do the same. But the truth is, you haven't done so because you're projecting the things that you refuse to work on for real off onto other people. That's the basis to me what the downfall is. Is because people don't really know themselves.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, and the second one about that is just understanding scripture, like we talked about a minute ago. We all have a responsibility to study the word and to study it to show our own selves approved. But we have a lot of people that are studying scripture to just go and debate other people about scripture.
Absolutely.
That's not what it's for. If something is not sitting right with you and you study scripture and you get your own understanding, that's what it's for.
Yeah.
Right? So those are the two biggest downfalls I feel of what Christianity or what church portrays, right? But the benefits, for one, we're talking about collective community.
Yeah.
There is one way to grow, and that way to grow is within community. You know, it's about fellowshipping with other people, learning how they operate, how they work. Those are benefits because everybody is not the same. If we wanted things to be the same, or if they were supposed to be, God would have created everybody to be the same.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So the benefit of the collective is what's important. Number two, it provides a space for our children to be cultivated. We don't talk about that a lot, nor
Yeah,
do
good
we
point.
provide space for it.
Yeah, good point.
Our children now are coming out of the womb smarter than what we are presently.
You ain't lying. I talk about that all the time. My son is 6, and he started. What did he do? He was watching a movie the other day. He pressing play and rewind. I'm like, dude, I have not showed you how to do this on a laptop.
Listen.
He literally watched me do it.
Yep.
And he's doing it. And I'm like, what?
I have twin nieces that are 7.
Yeah.
Okay. And they both are different, but they're the same.
Yeah.
The one thing about it, anything electronic, they pick it up,
Man,
especially my niece Zion. She will watch me do something and she'll get it and she'll figure it out on her own. And by the time she got it, she don't need auntie no more.
Yeah.
Right? So the ability to use their own mind, it's what's causing our kids to be more advanced. So the church should present opportunities for our kids to be cultivated, not just in a mental capacity, but more so in a physical capacity. How do you communicate with people? How do you tell somebody what you did hurt me? I wanted to let you know that it hurt me, X, Y, and Z. We have to give room for that.
Yeah, for sure.
And on top of that, we have to know how to show up as ourselves. A lot of times we don't know how to go to church and be ourselves because they want us to be one way.
Yeah.
So we have that diaspora of being able to allow kids to come and be who they are. Our kids are interested in so much more than what we were and what I was growing up, right? Because there's so much more that's accessible to them. So the church can provide that in ways of programming, in ways of getting the kids involved in whatever it is we're doing. You can't tell me there's not one church that doesn't stream live on Sunday morning now because of COVID.
No way. Yeah, everybody.
Right?
Does. Yeah, it
so
doesn't matter.
Allow our children that are interested in technology to be able to sit in the sound booth, in the tech booth with the sound man to learn how to do this. Have a class on Tuesday evening teaching them how to do this, right? Yeah. It's cultivating our kids so that way if something comes up and the sound man needs to move or needs to take a break, you have somebody to step in. That's what it's for. And on top of that, it gives us the space to really be able to see what other people's perspectives are. A lot of times we like to shut it down. If it's not what I think and if it's not the way that I think it should be, I don't want to hear what you got to say.
Yeah.
And that's been a lot of what church has been.
Yeah, I was about to say, do you think like church carries that? Like a lot of times I don't think being challenged in church is accepted well, especially amongst the elders, as we would say.
Thank you, because I was just about to say that. Because it not only stems from a church perspective, but it's from a familial perspective as well.
Yeah.
Because like with my 7-year-old nieces, I'll never forget me and one of my nieces, Ryan, we went to Cookout to get something to eat. I ordered the food, and I ordered me a 5-piece chicken nugget. This might have been a year ago. So I ordered my little 5-piece first and then ordered their food. We get up to the window, get the food paid. I check the bag. I'm like, I don't see my chicken nuggets. Like, Ryan, did you heard me say my 5-piece? She was like, yeah, auntie, I did, but maybe he didn't hear you.
Yeah.
And I had to stop in that minute and was like, she right. Because maybe he didn't hear me. Yeah. But if I was 7 years old and I said something like that to my parent, you could best believe I'm probably finna get smacked in the mouth.
Yeah.
Didn't nobody tell you to take?
We're definitely at a different age with that because I'm the same way. I know I think about that all the time. Like I know if my parents, with Zion, he'll question something, and every once like a couple times I give him a couple, but after like, hey, get up, you know what I'm saying? But,
right.
Put on your shoes, we leaving. You know what I mean? No more time, but. It used to be one time. It wasn't even that. You know what I mean? My dad told me one thing. If I ain't get up right away, I'm getting smacked in the head. I'm getting my mom, let's talk back. I'm getting popped in the mouth. You know what I'm saying?
And that stems from not knowing how to regulate your emotions, right? That's what I'm learning. Because it's a lot of times where I'm interacting with my nieces and something happens and it triggers a thought in me. And I'm like, okay, Leanne, calm down. Yeah. Because remember what happened. This happened to you when you were 9 years old, right? Absolutely. You don't want to inflict that on them. So it's about learning at some point there has to be an acknowledgement of I refuse to perpetuate the same thing that was done to me onto those that are coming behind me. And sometimes the older generation feels as though that's talking back or that's disrespectful to voice your opinion.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of people, me included, I've had to work through this,
Yeah.
knowing that my voice does matter. But for a long time, it was what you say don't matter to me.
Yeah.
What you say don't hold no weight.
Yeah.
Whatever I say, go,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But it's like, that's not the case
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
children give you a different perspective on
Absolutely.
things.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's important for me. I mean, as far as cultivating a relationship with my son in that different way, I think you learn your emotions better. I think it's not fair for me to shut down him. I'll take for example, he doesn't like when I cuss around him. And at first, I was, maybe an ego behind that. Actually, ego behind. I won't say maybe. There definitely was ego behind that. And then like, I'm the dad. I'm an adult. And then, it's probably coming from his mom. She's in church now, and so I'm like, man, I'm gonna do whatever I want. It's my house. He got to learn how to be around me, be
Uh-oh.
me. But then, I don't know. I think it was probably like 2 weeks ago, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. I was kind of like just sitting around that weekend, and I had some accountability to myself. It was just like, that's Zion asked me that. I can't project what I think is coming from.
Right,
As he's asked me that, it's my son. He's here with me. He ain't here with me but a few days out of the week. You know what I'm saying?
right.
I cannot cuss around him at 6. It's not
Yeah.
even really appropriate to be cussing around him no way. You know what I mean? I'm just being stubborn about it and having an ego about it. But it necessarily, like, no, he's fair to ask of that from me.
Yeah.
And it's not, I need to teach him that he can challenge me. So when it comes time for me to challenge him, it's respected. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Like, it can't always be me always making sure he doing the right thing, but then he tries to hold me accountable, and I'm
And
hitting
you
him with, I'm the
refuse.
dad, or I'm the grown man, I'm paying bills around, you ain't paying no bills, all the shit we used to hear as kids.
Yeah.
That's not fair for him, you know what I mean? Because now he's learning to, it's not reciprocated.
Reciprocated.
You know what I
Exactly.
mean? So like,
And like I'll never forget, there was one time I was keeping my girls, my nieces,
yeah,
and they were just sitting there playing with each other, and I was doing something on my computer, and I don't know what happened. I think Ryan snatched something from Zion. All of a sudden, I heard Zion say, "You beep beep beep." I was like, where did you learn how to cuss like a 45-year-old? First off,
yeah.
and I realized that she was being exposed to things in these different groups and stuff that she
Yeah,
goes to after school.
yeah, for sure.
So I was like, okay, Zion, wait, first off, tell me where you heard them words
Yeah,
at.
yeah,
She was like, oh, no, listen, it was the big ones.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and my chest, I was like, whoa, because if that was me, I wouldn't be alive.
Yeah, for sure.
At all.
Absolutely.
But me hearing her say that, I was like, wait
Yeah,
a
you need to
minute.
learn where she got
I don't think she know what that means.
Yeah,
I don't think she realizes what she's saying.
Yeah, she just know the context.
She just heard it and picked it up and kept going.
Yeah.
So I explained it to her. Listen, your mama, your nanny, your papa, and your daddy probably are not going to want to hear you say that.
Yeah,
But when you around auntie and you just feel the need to let it come out, I ain't going to be mad at you.
yeah,
Because I understand that you're growing
yeah.
and you are experiencing things. But don't say that outside of the realm of me
Yeah,
and you.
Yeah, that's important to have that relationship too, as an auntie versus a grandmother. Mother.
Right.
That's supposed to be a little different. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, the respect boundaries are there, but yeah, it's supposed to be a little different. I can't even get mad when Zion, my son, when he cussed the first time, because I know exactly where he heard it. You know what I mean? Like when I was like,
Yep,
what can I say?
You can't say nothing.
He learned it from
Yeah.
me. So yeah, I mean,
And it was just like, I don't want them to feel like they have to walk around on eggshells.
Absolutely, I'm big about that too.
I want you to feel like you can say whatever it is you feel the need to say.
Yeah, I'm big
As
about
a
that too.
child, you've never been here before. You are learning. Your mind is expanding.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you that space. And as the adult, you already know that I'm the adult.
Yeah.
It's given from the moment that you're born. You know that's your mama, that's your daddy, that's your nanny, your papa, I'm your auntie. You know that these are the people in your life that are taking care of you. It's a given without anybody ever having to say anything. But if I were to keep coming back and say, well, you going to do this because I said so,
Yeah.
or you going to do this because I told you so,
Yeah.
or you going to do this
You're
because
not learning the right or wrong yourself.
you're not.
You only learning from mom or dad. You know
Exactly.
what I'm saying?
And what we don't realize is, I think, let me think. I want to say it's in one of them books in the New Testament. It's not coming to me. But the scripture says that the child will follow what the parent does. Kids don't do what you say, they do what you do.
Yeah, what they see.
Every single time. So it's like, even in a lot of situations, at one point, I think this was maybe when I was 17, 18, I was in the process of trying to lose weight. And so my mom was more like, oh, well, you need to do this and you need to do that and you need to make sure you do this and make sure you do that. And in the back of my head, I was like, I had to say it to myself, because if I said it out loud, then there would have been repercussions, and I ain't want that problem. So I was like, you telling me to do all this, but what are you doing? Without being disrespectful. You know, it's like I have to learn what works for me.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
how it benefits my body.
Yeah.
And it's been a 15-year process, but over the course of the past 2 years, the weight that I've lost has been because of me learning myself.
Absolutely.
And not listening to what other people are telling me to do,
Yeah.
because they're not even trying to do it themselves.
Yeah, for sure.
So-
Well,
Yeah.
if anything you know about me, bro, hey, don't come to me talking about some stuff you don't know about or I ain't seen or did, because I will call you out. I don't care what it is.
Listen.
Yeah, if you not, if you ain't doing, how you gonna tell me to do something you ain't done? Or how you know what I mean? How you gonna tell me what I seen and you ain't seen it? I am so bad about that. Like,
When I tell you, it was so many church people during my first city council run, right? After the election took place, everything happened. It was a lot to process. It took me about a year to just be okay, right?
Yeah.
I had so many church folk that were wanting to see me succeed. But then there was a other group of folk that were, oh, well, you should have done this, and you should have done this, and you shouldn't have said that, and you should have wore this, and you should have. And I'm just like, well, first off, did you submit your name at the Hamilton County Election Commission to run for any public office? Did you?
Yeah.
No? Okay. Until you do that, then we can sit down and have a conversation. But none of you have taken the initiative to actually initiate change, but yet you want to try and tell me what.
You know what's annoying about that too, and I've noticed this with the podcast. I have the same thing. It's after. Like you don't hear that. You don't hear that before.
No.
Right? So when you're running or you're like trying to get your plan together, everybody watching on the outside, whatever. As soon as it's over, you lost your situation. Or as soon as I've like started doing my podcast, you start seeing me. Now you want to come to me, hey, well, you should do this. Or, hey, you should have did this. Or, hey, where was y'all at?
Where
you know
were
what I
you?
mean? When we was pre-planning and pre-gaming and
Listen,
doing what I need to do, you could have helped me with that before I lost. How about that?
When me and Mike were canvassing all of District 5, where were you?
Yeah.
When we were writing up letters, mailing them, licking the envelopes, putting the stamps on them, mailing them out to people, where were you at?
Yeah, where's the word? Yeah.
But then you see, and then too, like, on top of that, it was my first city council run, and it was 6 candidates in my one little bitty
I was about to say, you ran it up crazy.
It was a big one. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I was about
so
to say.
I'm not saying I wasn't expecting the best. When the results came in, I was shocked that I got as many votes that I did.
Yeah, I mean,
so that let me know, what we
doing the
was
right
doing
things.
was where it was at, right? But even at that, it was like people were not willing to hop on board. But when they saw that I lost, then they want to come and try to, don't do that.
Nah, I ain't trying to.
Let's not do that.
I'm the same way. Get out of my face.
Even when it comes to certain people talking about how to handle church leadership, I have seen that all my life. Because my dad, our church was a part of the Southern Baptist Convention. I'm not sure if you're aware.
Yeah, I know about brother.
So he served on the executive board for the Tennessee Baptist Convention for 10 years, right? So he was the only black person in the room full of all these white folk. So learning how to deal with white people, I learned from him because he was in it, and how to set up your church properly, how to do things the right way. It's never about setting things up to control people, but it's about setting it up the right way to protect the church. Because even though we know there is a separation between church and state, you do want to make sure that you're protecting what you believe in. That's why each church should be autonomous in so many ways to protect them.
Yeah.
And I believe in every church's right to believe in what they believe in. But the minute that you go forth to try to hurt people and the rules that you have are preventing people from being who they are, we have a problem,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
So even stems to that, like learning that people who have done this for years know what they're doing. So you standing on the outside end trying to tell people what to do when you ain't doing nowhere near it is a problem to me. A big problem to
Yeah, I
me.
feel that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I cut that off immediately. All right, so let's talk about psychology a little bit before we start wrapping up the episode. You said you were in school for that. It was funny because I was going to ask you about psychology in the church because that's I wouldn't say it's a hot topic, but it's something that consistently gets brought up with certain mental health. With me doing Mental Health Monday, I've kind of noticed that, certain mental health topics or, ideals um, seem to counter some Christian ideals. So I wanted to get your opinion on that and thoughts as far as like now that I know you're in class in school, those concepts versus like um, biblical concepts, and then also like how do you see psychology playing out in the church in the future, moving forward, as far as like how we view therapy in the black community and the black church, and not only just therapy, but therapy outside of what we view Christian therapy.
Okay,
Yeah.
I hear you. What a lot of people don't realize is there are three aspects that make up who we are. It's our mind, our body, and our spirit, right? Our body speaks to the physicality of who we are.
Yeah.
Our makeup, do we have the ability to be flexible? Can we, our digestive system, all of those things. Our mind is a completely different organism on its own.
Absolutely.
And what we don't realize is growing and moving through life, everything that we see is being recorded in our subconscious. A lot of people don't know that. So the behavioral aspects that we pick up on a day-to-day basis over the course of our lives are stuck in our subconscious, and they are literally guiding how we move through life without us even recognizing it.
Yeah, for sure.
And for people to say, oh, well, you don't need to go to therapy, you just need to pray about it, and whoa,
It's dangerous.
somebody come to me and say, I'll just pray about it, you'll be all right. We tussling. I got time that day. Because the idea is to pray and to do something about it. Faith without works is dead, right? So if there's something that's going on the inside of you that you really just don't have no idea about, go see somebody who studies the brain.
Yeah.
Because that is where the disconnection lies. The way that the mind is interesting. For a long time, they thought that you could not create new neural pathways in the brain, but you can. Because a lot of times our childhood experiences are what we pull from because that's our foundation. So let's just say, like, I'll use me for an example. For a very long time, I was afraid of dogs.
Yeah.
Because because when I was, how old was I? 8 or 9, I think. I was outside with my cousin. We was playing a hand game. I remember we was standing on the street playing patty cake, I think it was, and it was this pit bull, okay? running up the
Yeah,
street
that would have scared me too.
behind me. I'm like this and she like this and we playing and all of a sudden her eyes get big and she take off and I'm like, what? And here come this dog. I took off running to my house. I tripped up and fell and the dog grabbed me on the back of my thigh, right? So from then on,
Dang,
I
I'm sorry.
said, no, I do not
Oh
like
man,
dogs.
dang.
So everywhere I went, there were dogs. If I saw a dog, I would freeze up, be like, I don't want to be around that
Yeah.
dog. Give me away, give me away. But as I got older and realized I can't walk through life being afraid of dogs like this, so I had to be intentional about recreating my experience with dogs. So I took it slow. My best friend has two big pits, but they're not like mean or dangerous. They're not vicious. So for a little while, I would go to her house, sit next to the pit, and just sit there, not touch it or nothing, but just let it walk around me. Yeah, my heart will be beating on the inside, but I'm breathing through it like, okay, I'll be all right. So now it's gotten to a point to where me and my nieces are getting ready to purchase a schnoodle at the end of October.
Nice.
Right? So
That's a good dog to get.
it's very intelligent and it's high
Ain't no
maintenance,
shade.
right? So, but it took intentionality for me to recreate that memory and to know I don't have to be afraid of dogs. I just have to work through it. And that's how you create the new neural pathways in your brain is by
Yeah.
recreating those experiences. So that way your mind is not telling you be afraid and then your heart starts racing and your pulse is increased and your body is releasing all of this stress. People don't realize all three aspects play off from each other.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
If your mind is telling you to be afraid of dogs, then your body is going to start releasing those nervous symptoms into
Yeah.
your body. And then you won't be able to pull on whatever your spirit has because you're not focused on that.
Yeah.
Your palms are sweating, your heart is beating, and you're trying to figure out how to stay safe.
Yeah.
You're not worried about being
yeah.
free. You're trying to survive because
Yeah.
your mind is telling you now is the time for you to fight
Yeah.
or
Absolutely.
freeze.
Yeah.
And everybody is either going to do one of those reactions. So it's important for us to be aware of how our brain works. If we're not focused on that, then we're moving through life in survival mode.
Yeah.
And that's not beneficial to anybody.
Yeah.
We have to learn how to utilize the things that have been given to us and do them in the best way that suits us.
Yeah.
Because what works for me may not work for you. But if it's working for you, who am I to tell you that what's working for you is not working for you? If you happy, if you good, if you growing, live your life.
Absolutely.
But because we get so afraid that things won't look the way we know them to look as or look like, then that's where the control comes in.
Yeah.
And all of that is stemming from the subconscious mind because there was something in your childhood that you had no control over. And so now you're finding a way to control everything around you so that way you can remain safe. But at some point, you have to be willing to break that cycle.
Yeah.
It was a study that came out maybe like 5 years ago. I read an article about it the other day. And it says that at the age of 35, now 35, mind you, that's not old at all. But at the age of 35, if you have not begun to implement processes to change your perspective or the way that you think, the older you get past 35, the less likely it is that you'll change. That's why it's so hard for a lot of older people to change their perspective.
Yeah. I learned. I mean,
Well, you can learn that just by
just being around
experience.
them.
Exactly.
Yeah. At a certain point, I'm just like, I tell people to don't even get upset. Sometimes
right.
like old people say, it's
Protect your peace.
Like, yeah, it's
Huh?
not even worth it because ain't nothing you can go say.
It
gonna
ain't
change
nothing you can say that'll change it. But you have to learn how to maneuver around. Is it tough? Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Realizing that these people around you are refusing to understand you or even validate your experiences, but they're gung-ho and hell-bent about you understanding theirs and you formatting your life to theirs. It's hard to be able to have that dexterity to say, okay, I can give you your space to think how you think. If you're not going to change, that's fine. But along the way, I'm still going to be who I am and not necessarily do anything to upset you, because I understand we got to work together in this. It's a process, and it's one of those things where people sometimes shy away from simply because they just are not aware. That's it. So it's important for us in the church to do the necessary work by going to therapy.
Yeah.
You know, I'll never forget, there was a situation that occurred when I was 16 years old. Long story short, the situation occurred with an associate minister of my dad's church at the time. Um, I found myself in a grooming situation.
Yeah.
Okay. And so the issue was that my dad, instead of bringing him to the church, he told him, pack your stuff and leave. But I was the one brought in front of the church. So imagine how that, in
So
my
yeah,
mind,
everybody sees you in that situation.
yeah. So I'm thinking to myself, I guess I got to self-sacrifice in every situation I'm in,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So when I start realizing something wasn't right, I'm like, okay, no, I got to go talk to somebody about this. But the first therapist that I went to was not a good therapist. She just wasn't. So when I'm talking about it, my mom was like, if you want to go to therapy, go. Something wrong with you?
Yeah.
And I'm
It's
like, it
something
ain't
wrong with all of us.
it ain't
If we
it
being
ain't
real.
nothing wrong with me. There were
Yeah.
just situations that happened to me that messed up the way
Man,
that
there's
I
something
was
wrong with all
thinking.
of us. We all got our
We all got something
yeah, we all got
wrong
our
with
baggage.
us.
Yeah.
But I
We all
don't
got our
like to use,
baggage.
yeah, I don't like to use the word right or wrong,
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, I mean,
simply because now at the age of 32, looking back on my entire life, everything happened the way that it happened, the way that it should have
yeah,
happened,
for sure, it's supposed to
because
happen.
there were lessons that I learned in it.
Yeah.
But understanding that in those lessons, I had to be able to reconcile what happened. Because for a long time, I really almost resented my parents.
I feel that.
And I had to work through that
Yeah.
so that way I would not be holding on to anger or bitterness towards them. But I understand that they had to do the best that they could, even though they had never had to deal with a situation like that. But I still had to give way for the little girl inside of me that felt like I couldn't be protected by anybody because my own parents weren't in that moment. So it's like everybody has these situations that they deal with, but they don't know how to go about letting it go or even dealing with it
Yeah.
because they refuse to. They think that praying and only praying is going to get the job done. And it's not, because if it was, God would not have allowed these things to come into
Yeah.
fruition the way that He has.
Yeah.
Everything is on earth for a
To
specific
use.
reason.
Yeah, I just it's funny you bring that up because it's related, but it's sports related. So I was watching a little interview today with what's his name, Jason Womack, I think. I can't remember his name. Big fat dude, black dude. And then he was talking to Brett Favre, and they were talking about Dion. And Brett Favre was talking about just how Dion gives credit to God and stuff like that about his work. And the other dude was like, Andy gives credit to himself. And Brett was like, well, there's like, obviously there's different levels. And the other dude was like, well, for me, like I've done things in my career and I've done places in my career. And he's not even at the top level, And he was like, pretty much hating on him. And he was like, yeah, and all that's because of God. It's not because of me. And I was like, that's not true. You worked your butt off to get to where you are. Like, God gives you your tools. Yes, He's gonna lay things out for you. You pray, obviously, you work with your relationship with Him and do the right things. Yes, but you can't just only do that. Like, He gives you the tools. He gives you your personality. He gives you um, the things you naturally are good at. You know what I mean? Like, we all different for a reason. So He gives you these tools. He gave Dion those tools to be where
You
he's at.
make a really good
And
point.
Dion put in the work along with the tools.
Right.
Now he's at. That's why he can give God credit and say this is from God because he gave it for me, and I put in the work to get there. And it wasn't necessarily just him sitting around praying for it, and God gave him some miracle, and now it's all played out. That's not how it works, you know. I think. Oh, go ahead.
No, you're good. I ain't want to cut you off.
No, yeah,
But there's a scripture in Psalms or Proverbs, and it says, if you delight yourself in the Lord, he will give you the desires of your heart. People sometimes have a issue with accepting the fact that you have to be the one putting in the work. God is not going to come down and do the work for you.
Yeah.
You are the one putting in the work.
If that was the case, we all could just sit around and pray all day.
And then God will do it.
Everything would work out how we wanted to.
And God will do it. And he would do it,
Yeah.
right, without you having to lift a finger.
Yeah.
But the reality is, if you put your trust in him, God places those desires on your heart for a reason.
Yeah.
It's not saying that he's going to give you the very ego-driven things that you're wanting.
Yeah,
or
for sure. Yeah.
he's not going to bless you with all of these idealistic things. But there's something on the inside of you that you have been put on this earth to do. And that is because you've trusted that you're here for a reason. So God put that in your heart for a reason. Like, just for me, I know that it's my purpose and it's my mission for me to create and to initiate change within the church and within the community.
Yeah.
That didn't come because I wanted it.
Yeah.
It came because God needed me to do it.
That's what you bet.
So because of that, I have to be willing to put in the work. Yeah. Snoop Dogg, I think he was getting his star on the Walk of Fame.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, I want to thank God.
Yeah.
And I want to thank myself.
Yeah.
You have to.
I think, yeah, what's wrong with that? You know what I mean?
Wrong.
Yeah.
But for so long, we have been taught, oh, you got to remain humble. You got to remain.
I don't think giving credit to yourself is not.
It's not, because you the one put the work in.
You know what I mean?
You put the work in.
So how's that not being humble? You giving yourself credit for the work you put in.
You are recognizing and you are reconciling within yourself. It's only been because of God that I have been able to do the work that I'm able to do.
Absolutely.
And it's like, I'll never forget, there was one time I was really struggling with the decision to run for city council. And so for me, I've always had to work through being seen.
Yeah.
Because for so long it's been, you need to remain humble. You need to do, and it's like, okay, well, I guess I'll just be quiet, but that's not what I'm here to do.
Yeah.
So me reconciling that, I had to realize that the reason why God gives each and every individual person a particular purpose to work on is so that way he can be able to allow things to come into fruition in the world the way that they need to. And the minute that you do things against yourself, it's a direct disrespect to God.
Yeah.
He had to smack me in my face with that one. Because he's like, if you're not respecting yourself, you disrespecting me. Because I put you here for a reason. So why would you allow these things to transpire against you?
Yeah.
You're allowing it to transpire against me.
Yeah.
Take care of you first.
Yeah.
Make sure you're doing what you know you're here to do, and I will guide your steps every step of the way. Yeah. And you won't have to worry about anything. Just like that video, the Michael Jackson video. What song was that? Where he was in the video dancing, and it was like he was stepping on the little squares, and they would light up.
Oh, that's Billie Jean.
Billie Jean.
I know my Michael Jackson.
Yeah. So it was like he was stepping on the square, and it would light up.
Yeah.
The minute that you take the step, it's going to light up because God prepared that path for you.
Yeah, for sure. Good analogy.
Yeah. So
Absolutely. Well, I guess that's a good way to end the pod.
Absolutely.
Anything going on with you that you want the people to know, to follow you on, or are you planning on running for council again? You said you're probably gonna try to run for council again. So
definitely in the works of planning that out now.
Yeah.
So Michael Chapman, he was my campaign manager then, and he's still on my team to be campaign manager this go around. So we're planning, we're working, get some things situated. So things won't really start coming into fruition until the beginning of 24.
Yeah.
That's when things gonna start
Well,
hitting the.
shoot. I mean, we close.
Yeah, it'll be here
It'll be
tomorrow.
here sooner than you
It'll be
think.
here tomorrow.
So
So,
yeah. Well, all
but
right.
yeah, just I mean, you can follow me on Facebook. My name is Leanne Michelle Jones.
Okay.
And I'll be sharing some additional pages to follow from there.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you.
For sure. No, I appreciate you having a conversation. Like I said, I haven't really talked about this aspect of my life and on the
Yeah,
podcast that much. I normally keep the spiritual. Some of that's a lot. Very personal.
it
And
is.
then also it can open up a can of worms. For me, I speak about that stuff quite a bit with my family and,
Right.
and my son's mother. So I try to keep it
Certain
there.
aspect. Yeah. But for me, I'm an open book.
But
Anybody
no,
want?
I am too. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is a good chance to talk about it because I think a lot of these conversations in
They
the black
need to
community
happen.
need to happen,
Mhm.
especially. And I have these talks with my uncle, and he's like on a mission to
Yes, he is.
get the youth more involved, kind of get more like a revamp how Christianity's looked at in the
Yep.
black community. Me and him have he's out of all, and that's just not saying that as my uncle, but out of all pastors that I've actually had conversations with, he's probably
And
one of the
he
ones
is
that
cool
yeah,
people
he's
to
one of the ones
me.
that is like
Yeah.
really tapped in. Like he it's not a it's for real. I'll just say that it's for
It
real.
definitely is.
So
Because it's in him.
yeah, it's in him, and I know his background because I mean that's my family,
Right.
but I just know that like you don't really get the same conversations that you can have with him with other pastors. So,
Yeah.
but he's on a mission for that, and I think this is another reason or way of doing that. Like, and I wouldn't even
Absolutely.
mind having him on to actually give a past perspective on that.
For sure.
But yeah, no, thank you for coming on. I needed this talk as well. I think the community needs this talk. It'll be
Mhm.
good for dialogue to kind of start up around it
And it was
in our
still.
in our age group, really, like in our 30. Now's a time where that church identity is starting to flip. You know what I mean? A lot
Mhm.
of the people that were in church as we grew up, they're older. You
Because
know,
why are we still assuming that the youth department is made up of millennials?
yeah,
Like we grown now.
yeah, we grown.
We grown,
Yeah,
grown.
it's
It's
not.
not.
It's Gen Z.
It's Gen Z. It's not. They
Yeah,
say, oh
yeah.
well, the millennial, the millennials, the youth department,
Millennials are
the what?
30 now.
We can
Yeah,
teach the youth department
yeah,
now.
we're 30.
Yeah. So it's still a lot that we didn't get to touch on,
For sure,
and
absolutely.
we'll have to have
Absolutely.
another conversation because it was a lot that we can still dig in
Mhm.
and help people understand better.
For sure.
So that way they don't have to feel like they have to stay away from church.
Mhm.
It's just about finding the right community
Mhm.
that speak to who you are.
For sure.
That's it.
For sure.
That's what a part of my mission is here to do.
Well, I'm
Is to
good.
help
Glad.
people find who they are, find the community that best suits them to be the best of who they are. That's
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely. Well, I'm with you on that mission. I hope we get some healing in our community, and this is a big
Absolutely.
step to that. So,
Yeah.
thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Subscribe to Iggy's Loudmouth podcast. Y'all know the
Yeah.
drill. Spotify, YouTube, Apple. Big news next month is gonna be a big month for your boy. So I got some Mental Health Monday. I'll drop tomorrow. I'll talk about it a little bit tomorrow, Mental Health Monday. But got some big things coming up in October. We're wrapping up September pretty strong.
Yay.
And I'll see you on the next episode. Peace.
All right.